The early years. A turbulent start to life. Asa Coon's early life was marked by instability, a lack of parental support, and an overwhelming sense of neglect. Born in Cortland, New York on November 18, 1992, Asa was raised in a family that struggled with deep personal and emotional issues. His mother, Lori Looney, struggled with addiction, which made it difficult for her to provide a stable home environment for Asa and his siblings. His father, absent in Asa's life from the very beginning, provided no sense of security. Asa's siblings played a significant role in shaping his outlook. His older brothers had been involved in criminal activity, which Asa seemed to both idolize and resent. The absence of a father figure combined with his mother's emotional instability created an environment where Asa was frequently neglected. In the absence of nurturing relationships, Asa was often forced to fend for himself emotionally, struggling to connect with others. The lack of structure in his home life only compounded his growing sense of alienation. Asa was also in and out of foster care, which often led to further trauma. He was shuffled between various homes, and the absence of long-term stability caused Asa to grow distrustful of the adults around him. His feelings of abandonment were exacerbated when, at the age of 10, he was finally taken out of his mother's care permanently. By the time he entered SuccessTech Academy in Cleveland, Asa had already experienced years of emotional trauma, which had yet to be addressed. Mental health issues and the struggles of diagnosis. Asa was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and later, depression. These mental health issues were severe, but unfortunately, the help Asa needed was either inconsistent or non-existent. He was prescribed various medications over the years, but these medications did not always have the desired effect, leading to further frustrations. No one could quite figure out what was wrong with Asa, and he, too, was unable to properly express the depth of his suffering. Instead of receiving therapy, Asa's psychological distress was often dismissed by adults around him. His moods were seen as typical teenage rebellion, and his odd behaviors, such as extreme emotional reactions to minor events, were often overlooked. These misdiagnoses and lack of appropriate treatment set the stage for Asa's eventual outburst of violence. Bullying, the catalyst for a violent reaction. Asa's time at SuccessTech Academy, a Cleveland public charter school, was supposed to offer him a fresh start. It was a school known for working with at-risk students, and it was believed that the alternative learning environment might offer Asa the chance to thrive. Unfortunately, Asa's arrival at SuccessTech coincided with an environment rife with bullying. Asa's appearance, his dark gothic clothing, his dog collar, and his odd mannerisms immediately marked him as a target. He became an easy target for taunts and mockery from his classmates. The bullying Asa experienced was not limited to verbal abuse. He was physically assaulted by his peers and ostracized by almost everyone. His attempts to make friends were ignored, and any attempts to defend himself were met with more laughter and cruelty. Instead of offering support, the school administration largely ignored the bullying. The teachers and staff were unaware of the depth of Asa's struggles or failed to act on the signs of bullying. The emotional pain Asa endured only compounded his mental health struggles. He became increasingly withdrawn and began to develop a dark fascination with violence. His journals were filled with disturbing imagery, references to death, and fantasies about revenge. The violence he contemplated grew darker with each passing day, and instead of receiving help, Asa was left alone with his thoughts. The months leading to the tragedy. By the time October 2007 arrived, Asa had reached a breaking point. His suspension from school, following a physical altercation with a fellow student just days before the shooting, left him feeling rejected by the only system that was supposed to help him. For Asa, the suspension symbolized the culmination of years of emotional neglect and isolation. His frustrations boiled over, and revenge became his only thought. In the days leading up to the shooting, Asa began to meticulously plan his attack. He brought a revolver to school that day, having stolen it from his mother's boyfriend. He was able to smuggle it into the school without raising any suspicions, demonstrating how easily he could access dangerous weapons. Asa was not acting impulsively. He had carefully thought out his attack. He took pains to make sure his plan would come to fruition, showing the seriousness of his intentions. The day of the shooting, October 10th, 2007, began like any other for the students at SuccessTech Academy. Asa was prepared, carrying 2.38 caliber revolvers and several knives. The school had no metal detectors and security was not tight. Asa's arrival at school went unnoticed, allowing him to blend in and carry out his plans. The shooting, chaos unleashed. The morning of the shooting was a blur of panic and confusion. Asa made his way through the school's hallways with alarming ease. The first person he shot was a teacher, Michael Grassi, in the chest. Grassi's injuries were severe, but not immediately fatal. As Grassi fell to the floor, Asa's next victim was Darnell Rogers, a student who was shot in the leg as he tried to flee. Asa's intent was clear. He was out for revenge against the school that had failed him and his peers. The hallway turned into a scene of chaos. Students ran for cover, and teachers scrambled to keep their students safe. Asa, however, was determined, continuing his shooting spree. He wounded another teacher, David Kakadurian, and shot at a student who narrowly avoided being struck. At this point, Asa's violence seemed unstoppable. Students huddled together, locking doors and trying to remain out of sight. As Asa moved through the school, the staff, unaware of the full extent of the situation, tried to deal with the emergency the best they could. Only after a few minutes did the police start to respond, rushing to the school's location. Asa, realizing that law enforcement was closing in, retreated to a classroom where he barricaded himself. The final moments, Asa's end and the aftermath. The standoff didn't last long. Asa Coon, trapped in the classroom and realizing that he could not escape, turned the gun on himself. In his final moments, Asa ended his own life. The tragedy of his death was matched by the horror of his actions. He had taken the lives of others, and in doing so, he ended his own life prematurely. The response from law enforcement was swift, but it came too late. The scene inside SuccessTech Academy was one of confusion, with police officers attempting to assess the situation while paramedics rushed in to tend to the wounded. The victims, teachers, and students were rushed to local hospitals, where they received treatment for their injuries. Fortunately, none of the injuries proved fatal, but the psychological scars would last for much longer. The legacy of Asa Coon, unanswered questions, and a nation's reflection. In the aftermath of the shooting, the questions mounted. Why had Asa, a 14-year-old boy, resorted to violence? What could have been done to prevent it? The tragedy sparked a renewed conversation about the role of bullying, mental health, and gun access in school shootings. The tragedy was not just about Asa's violent outburst, but about the systems that failed to protect him. In the months following the shooting, reports indicated that SuccessTech Academy had failed to intervene effectively in the bullying Asa had experienced. Teachers had dismissed his violent threats as typical teenage bravado, and school administrators had failed to provide adequate support for Asa's psychological issues. His case was one of many that highlighted the gaps in school systems and mental health care that allow young people to fall through the cracks. Public reactions, media coverage, and reflections on society's failures. The media reaction to the shooting was intense. News outlets covered Asa's life and the violence that occurred at SuccessTech Academy. Some focused on the psychological and social factors that led to the tragedy, while others emphasized the shooter's violent tendencies. Asa was often portrayed as a monster or an angry young man, but few outlets took the time to understand the full extent of his pain or the systems that had failed him. While some news sources discussed the need for better mental health care for young people, the broader conversation about bullying, school culture, and the importance of early intervention remained limited. Asa's story is a reminder of the tragic consequences of neglect from his family, his school, and society as a whole. Conclusion: a tragedy that could have been prevented. The shooting at SuccessTech Academy was a heart-wrenching reminder of the dangers of neglecting mental health issues and allowing bullying to go unchecked. Asa Coon's story is a tragic example of how untreated pain can fester and explode into violence. His life is a reminder that children who are ignored, mistreated, or rejected by the systems that are supposed to protect them may feel they have no way out. The system failed Asa, and it failed the victims of his violence. The broader question remains, how can we prevent more tragedies like this from happening? This is a highly detailed expansion of the Asa Coon 2007 SuccessTech Academy shooting story, designed to be much larger for your narration. It thoroughly covers Asa's background, motivations, the shooting itself, and the aftermath. If you need a script to narrate, this should work well for a 20-minute or longer video. Thank you for watching Peaceful Stories. We hope today's journey through history, mystery, and tragedy has provided you with thought-provoking insights and a deeper understanding of the world around us. If you found this story compelling, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Your support means the world to us and helps us continue to share these important stories with all of you. We encourage you to leave your thoughts in the comments section below, as every opinion matters and opens up valuable discussion. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and share it with others who might appreciate it. At Peaceful Stories, we believe in the power of storytelling to spark reflection, compassion, and understanding. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep learning from the past as we move toward a more peaceful future.